Good evening, and welcome to this rather leisurely wander through one of history's most captivating and, at times, unsettling chapters, the lives of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. If you're here in search of a calm and reflective journey through the past, something to ease you towards rest, you've come to the right place. Before we begin, I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from? And what hour of the day or night is it for you? If you feel inclined, do say hello in the comments. And if these quiet excursions into history are to your liking, you may wish to subscribe so you'll never miss the next gentle voyage into the past. Let us set the stage. Picture a land of golden sands, verdant riverbanks, and temples so vast they seem to pierce the endless blue sky. A civilization that endured for more than 3 millennia, leaving its mark upon the human story in ways both grand and mysterious. At its very heart stood the Pharaohs, rulers thought to be divine, whose word carried absolute authority. And yet, beneath the glittering display of gold and ceremony, their lives were steeped in political intrigue, unbending traditions, and beliefs that to us may seem, at best, unusual, and at times deeply disturbing. Over the course of this journey, we shall step softly into their palaces, wander their gardens, and follow them through the rituals and duties that shaped their days. We shall meet names that have echoed down the centuries: Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, Ramses the Great, and uncover the blend of glory, obsession, and darkness that defined their reigns. Our story begins with Egypt itself. Around 3100 BCE, King Narmer, also remembered as Menes, united the scattered tribes of the Nile Valley, forging them into a single kingdom. The Nile's annual floods brought rich black silt to the land, sparking an agricultural revolution envied by the ancient world. In time, Egypt's reach stretched from the Mediterranean coast to the southern reaches of Nubia, supported by a strong central authority, skilled craftsmen, and innovations from ox-drawn plows to the sailboat. The Egyptians wrote in intricate hieroglyphics, tracked time with a 365-day calendar, and filled their world with artistry, sculptures, jewelry, paintings that remain objects of wonder. Their greatest achievements in stone, the pyramids, sprawling temples, and hidden tombs, were not only feats of engineering, but also declarations of eternity. For the pharaoh, life on earth was but a chapter. The afterlife was the true destination. And so they invested unimaginable wealth, labor, and skill into ensuring their tombs would be fit for eternity. These divine rulers were believed to embody Horus, the falcon god, upon earth. They held supreme power over state, religion, and warfare, yet were bound themselves by a web of customs and superstitions that touched every moment of their lives. In the royal household, marriage within the family, even between siblings, was common practice, intended to preserve the purity of the bloodline. Yet such arrangements often bred dangerous rivalries over succession. Behind the polished stone walls, alliances shifted, queens schemed, and courtiers whispered. Take, for example, Hatshepsut. Initially the regent for her young stepson, Thutmose III, she gradually assumed full kingship in her own right, adopting male regalia, even the ceremonial beard, and ruling for over 20 decades. Or Akhenaten, the so-called heretic king, who abandoned centuries of tradition to worship only the sun disk, Aten. In doing so, he moved the capital to a remote desert city and provoked the powerful priesthood. Earlier in Egypt's history, a far darker custom took place: retainer's sacrifice. Servants, guards, and animals were slain to accompany the ruler into the next world. Tombs from the earliest dynasties bear grim evidence of this, rows of skeletons laid to rest alongside their master. By the end of the Old Kingdom, such practices faded, replaced by symbolic substitutes, yet the memory of them lingers in the archaeological record. Of course, not every reign is remembered for cruelty or controversy. Ramses II, Ramses the Great, presided over an age of wealth and monumental construction. His likeness, carved into temple walls, still gazes proudly across the centuries. Cleopatra VII, much later, would navigate the treacherous politics of the Mediterranean with charm and intelligence, her story forever entwined with Rome. And then there is Tutankhamun, the boy king. His reign was brief, but the discovery of his nearly intact tomb in 1922 set the modern world alight. Inside were treasures of almost unimaginable splendor: the famous golden death mask, thrones, chariots, and jewelry, each piece a testament to the artistry of his time. In recent years, technology has brought us closer to the pharaohs than ever before. CT scans and DNA analysis reveal the physical toll of inbreeding, hint at their causes of death, and confirm family ties. Ancient inscriptions speak of court intrigues, diplomatic dealings, and the constant balancing act between divine authority and mortal vulnerability. And so, as the sun sinks behind the pyramids, the desert winds still carry whispers of these rulers. Their monuments endure, their stories, both glorious and grim, continue to shape our understanding of the past. The pharaohs may have gone to their eternal rest, but their legacy, carved in stone and memory, remains. So now draw the curtains, settle into your chair, and join me as we step gently into the long shadows of ancient Egypt, a world where kings were gods, life was fleeting, and eternity awaited just beyond the horizon. And so, as the sands of the Nile shift and whisper their ancient secrets, the legacy of Egypt's rulers continues to glimmer, half in splendor, half in shadow. These kings and queens of old did not merely govern a nation, they fashioned themselves as gods, their every breath an act of divine theater. Their monuments still pierce the horizon, not merely as stone and mortar, but as eternal proclamations of power. Power so absolute, it could command life and extinguish it without hesitation. Perhaps no ruler embodied this intoxicating blend of grandeur and ruthlessness more than Ramses II, Ramses the Great. Ascending to the throne in the 13th century before Christ, he ruled for an astonishing 66 years, his reign a golden age by many accounts. Cities flourished, the temples swelled with offerings, and colossal statues, some towering over 80 feet, cast their shadows across the sands, silent reminders of his supposed divinity. Yet behind the polished veneer lay a heart consumed by an unquenchable thirst for glory. Ramses claimed the works of those who came before, chiseling away their names to replace them with his own. His harem was vast, his children beyond counting, over 100 in number. And for all his wealth and power, his gaze was fixed most firmly upon the afterlife. The Ramesseum, his sprawling mortuary temple, was a world unto itself, teeming with priests, artisans, and slaves, all bound to his eternal service. Within, treasures glittered in the lamplight, golden chariots, delicately carved alabaster, furniture fit for the dwelling of a god. Even his pet lion, loyal in life, was mummified to guard him in death. But the most unsettling whispers speak of a darker preparation,
of concubines and household servants, ritually slain upon his passing, their bodies placed as though still waiting at his side, condemned to serve him for eternity. It was not cruelty for cruelty's sake, at least in his eyes. It was duty, an extension of the divine order he believed himself part of. For Ramses, and for many who sat upon the throne before and after him, morality was but a mortal chain, easily shrugged aside by one who reigned as a living god. From the boy king Tutankhamun, whose tomb dazzled with unimaginable riches, to the enigmatic Akhenaten, who reshaped Egypt's religion to serve his vision, to Cleopatra herself, who secured her crown with blood as much as with beauty, time and again the pharaohs proved that their reach extended far beyond the limits of mortal conscience. And so their story is one of impossible achievements and unspeakable acts, of gilded dreams and the dust of human bones. A tale as enduring as the Nile itself, and as haunting as the silent gaze of the Sphinx, forever watching, forever keeping the last secrets of Egypt's kings.
They could set aside sacred tradition on a mere whim, take lovers as they pleased, seize lands and fortunes without a trace of guilt, and even turn killing into a solemn rite, all without fear of consequence. The promise of a radiant afterlife rendered their excesses not merely permissible, but in many ways inevitable. Yet, in the end, the pharaohs encountered the same immutable truth faced by all despots throughout history, that no mortal power, however vast, can outrun death. For all their soaring temples, their grand tombs adorned with enchanted incantations, and their loyal servants slain to accompany them, they met the same fate as the humblest of peasants. Their linen-shrouded bodies and gleaming treasures were left to gather dust in silent vaults as their empire crumbled and their gods faded into myth. The lesson of Egypt's god-kings remains as stark today as it was 3 millennia ago. Those who imagine themselves beyond morality and mortality are destined to be humbled. The great leveler comes for kings and commoners alike. It is a truth written in the sands for over 3,000 years, and as we close this chapter on the unsettling reign of Egypt's so-called divine monarchs, one can hardly help but marvel at all that has been claimed by time. We have unearthed their riches and prized open some of their secrets, but much remains hidden. The tale of a civilization that could build wonders beyond imagination, yet cast aside the restraint of conscience. Perhaps, as the archaeologists press deeper into the earth, we shall learn more of the shadows behind the gold, the vaulting ambition that lifted these rulers to impossible heights, and the vanity that ensnared them in their own myth. Until that day, they shall remain in our imagination, grand, mysterious, sphinx-like, gleaming with gold, yet wrapped in shadow. Somewhere in the Valley of the Kings, truths still slumber, waiting to greet the light. Grim stories of rulers who held the very breath of their people in the palm of their hand, only to be reduced to dust and memory. It is a reminder that no crown, no empire, no mortal pride can stay the steady march of time. And so, as we drift into the quiet of sleep, our thoughts adrift on images of gilded sarcophagi and whispering spirits, we may take some comfort in the knowledge that such rulers no longer walk among us, divine in title, extravagant in life, and undone at last by the weight of their own towering pride. The morning would begin for the pharaoh with solemn ceremony. He would bathe in sacred waters or be ritually cleansed by the priests, a rite to purify both body and spirit. Then he would be robed in the finest linens, crowned with the symbols of his sovereignty, the double crown, the crook, the flail. Each bore its own meaning. The crook, the shepherd's staff, marking him as guardian of his people.
the flail a symbol of his power to punish Egypt's foes. Even these seemingly simple morning rites were bound in deep spiritual purpose. Every gesture, every movement was made in accordance with the eternal laws of Ma'at, the divine order that held the world in balance. To stray from this sacred pattern, even for a heartbeat, was to risk inviting chaos and the wrath of the gods themselves.
It was an immense, existential weight to carry, yet one regarded as utterly essential for a living god. Once clad in his divine regalia, the pharaoh would step out of the palace to commence a day brimming with duties. His morning often began with a pilgrimage to the temple, where he presented offerings to the gods and performed vital sacred rites. As the high priest of every temple throughout the land, his role was to appease the deities and secure their continued favor upon Egypt. With deliberate care, he would present gifts, intone ancient spells, and burn incense before the cult statues housed within the temple's sanctum. Though the rituals might seem repetitive, each had to be executed with unerring precision, like maintaining the very gears of a cosmic machine. Even the slightest error could bring dire consequences. The renowned pyramid texts carved upon royal tomb walls served as a divine script, guiding the pharaoh through the challenges of the afterlife, leading him to the blessed field of reeds. One can only fathom the intense pressure and anxiety placed upon him, knowing that perfection in these rites was the key to eternal existence. Having fulfilled his religious duties, the pharaoh would then turn to the affairs of state. He convened with his most trusted counselors, the viziers, who served as his eyes and ears across the sprawling realm. They reported on political matters and the diplomatic ties with foreign powers such as the Nubians, Hittites, and Mesopotamians. Petitions from the people were heard, and judgments were handed down in accordance with Ma'at, the sacred principle of truth, balance, and justice. Though the viziers managed the daily workings of the vast bureaucracy, the final authority always rested with the pharaoh. To govern such an immense kingdom was no simple task, yet the pharaoh's absolute power brought its own dangerous temptations. Without effective checks on his will, a ruler could easily fall into corruption or tyranny. Some imposed harsh levies and forced labor upon their subjects to fund extravagant building projects. Others, seized by paranoia, resorted to ruthless purges to eliminate perceived rivals. Pharaoh Ta-IV, for instance, ordered the murder of his own mother and brother to secure his throne. With ultimate authority over life and death, even family ties could become deadly. However, the pharaoh's day was not solely consumed by toil and intrigue. He was entitled to indulge in the finest earthly pleasures. Perhaps he would venture on a desert hunt, launching arrows from his war chariot at fleeing lions and gazelles. This was no mere sport, but a powerful symbol of the pharaoh's triumph over the forces of chaos that perpetually threatened Egypt. A successful hunt was proof of his strength and martial prowess. He might also enjoy a game of senet with a trusted courtier. Senet was immensely popular among the Egyptian elite and carried spiritual significance. Many believed the game represented the soul's perilous passage through the duat, the underworld, with the final squares marking the gates of the afterlife. Once again, the boundaries between earthly recreation and cosmic symbolism blurred. As the sun god Re's journey across the sky drew to a close and shadows lengthened, the pharaoh would retire to his chambers after a long day's service to the two lands. Yet even in rest, his divine duties never fully ceased. Sleep was believed to mystically unite his Ba, his soul, with Re,
renewing his divine vitality. It was a time of strange visions and communion with the gods rather than mere repose. Enigmatic dream books have survived, used to interpret the Pharaoh's dreams and uncover divine messages within them. In one unsettling vision recorded in the Chester Beatty Papyrus, Pharaoh Ramses II dreamt of Ptah, the great creator god of Memphis, standing over him wielding a sword. Ptah reproached him for failing to complete his temple and struck him sharply on the side, a stark reminder of the heavy divine expectations resting upon the king.